So we are now excited to bring some Speak About It rock stars, and if I could pull it off, I would say OGs, but I cannot, to this Zoom stage. Kaylee Wolfe, founder Shane Diamond, maker of the best Zoom backgrounds around, and some of the original writers of the script, Jeremy Bernfeld and Linzee Troubh. I am so honestly excited to hear this conversation, and I can't wait.
I haven't seen Linzee in years. Years, I tell you. Oh my God, what?
Well, you're about to. Hey everybody, my name is Kaylee. I live in Portland. I use she, her pronouns, and I was Speak About It's intern in summer 2014 and quickly made myself so indispensable that Shane had to find money to hire me. So here we are, all these years later. I am now the secretary of the board, and it's great, and I'm just so glad and grateful that I get to stay connected to this work in a different capacity these days, cheering on from the sidelines and trying to raise some money. So glad you're all here, and thrilled to be having this conversation tonight with some truly amazing people. You already met Shane earlier this evening, but we're also joined tonight by Jeremy Bernfeld and Linzee Troubh, who wrote the original script while they were students at Bowdoin. So if we could just start things off by having our panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to these days.
Linzee, do it.
Sure. Okay, I'm Linzee. I was class of '05 at Bowdoin. No, '09, sorry.
Or '09.
It was a very long time ago. And these days I'm in Brooklyn and I work for The Atlantic and I do film and TV development there. So I'm looking to adapt their amazing reporting into film and TV series.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jeremy Bernfeld. I'm in Washington, D.C. Hey, Shane. I was also class of '09 at Bowdoin and got to work alongside Linzee and Emily and Shane in developing this. I'm now, I think I said I'm in D.C. I work for the public radio station there.
I'm Shane Diamond. I left Speak About It in 2018, broke up with my longest relationship, and grateful that we are still friends. I was an idiot in the first show and did some other stuff, and now I'm the communications manager for the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund in New York City, and I'm currently in Brooklyn and excited to get coffee with Linzee and all you other actors who are nearby. Please hang out. I have no friends. And Emily, to you.
So it's so good to see you guys. I am hanging out in Kittery, Maine. I started with Jeremy and Linzee, the original script writing back in the day in many coffee shops in Portland and random places all across Bowdoin. It's crazy to think that that was like way over 10 years ago now. It's nuts. But yeah, hanging out in Maine, and I work as a nurse practitioner in women's health in a OBGYN office, taking care of lots of folks, living life. Had a kid a little bit ago and enjoying things, so yeah.
Emily, I'm so sorry that I missed you in the initial thing, but I'm so thrilled to see you. What a surprise.
I wasn't even initially gonna be in the initial thing, but everyone's wonderful and I'm happy to jump on and say, hey, I'm excited to be here.
Fabulous. And I feel like just to really bring the cult feeling home, I should mention I'm also a Bowdoin class of 2015, so just keeping it in the family here. So moving on to our first question, since we're talking about founding and origins, it makes sense to think about Jeremy, Linzee, and Emily, if you could just tell us a bit about the early days of Speak About It when it was just a twinkle in your eyes and what compelled you to get the ball rolling on this project, and what were your goals?
Jeremy and I were just texting about this to see if either one of us remembered the origins. So the good thing is we, in addition to being the leaders of V-Day and Be Massive respectively, we're also on the improv group together. So we're gonna harness those long dormant skills to come up with something. I think we had, like I said, he was the head of Be Massive, I was the head of V-Day. So we were really focused on trying to start the conversation about healthy sex and consent on campus and the real thing that was lacking was a good orientation program. I mean, as people know, it was just pretty pitiful, and that was freshmen's first experience on campus trying to talk about these sort of things, and it felt like we were playing a lot of catch up. So we were trying to think of creative ways that we could expand the work that we were already doing into something a little bit more formal. And I think Jeremy and I seemed like natural people to dig into it. And then it was really Emily and Meadow who formalized it, brought us back to campus after we graduated, which was the best thing ever. And yeah, that's my recollection.
Yeah, I think, Emily, please jump in and correct whatever I'm leaving out. But I think the thing that I remember most vividly was how it felt like these issues around sex and consent are obviously so important, and especially in that crucial time at orientation, and how it felt to me like there were so many people in the incoming first year class who were bright and they were interested and they actually wanted to be better, and that they lacked, you know, the training or the vocabulary or some of the ideas, and that they just needed a better introduction to it, and one that kind of helped them have these important discussions in a frank and candid way, have new skills about how to talk about what they wanted and didn't want, and for these ideas to actually really connect, you know, in a thoughtful, in a funny, in a frank and candid way. And I think that just didn't exist. And we were lucky to have the support of people like Emily, and kind of taking that just little germ of an idea and being like, well, let's do something about it, which I thought was so great.
Yeah, so what I can remember is your senior year, I feel like had it was like just this rock star group of people having these intense, awesome conversations. And the conversation all of a sudden shifted from this like consent as being the like, you know, you need to make sure somebody's not saying no, to this like, how do we make this like, how do we make consent sexy? How do we make it like a positive thing? And all of a sudden with the flip of that question, it just seemed like all of the programs, all of the first year education programs that had previously come were like literally cringeworthy in terms of like how much sort of how unrealistic and how like the diversity that they lacked, the lack of using inclusive language, and just like there were so many moments of just like, ooh, is this really what we're saying first day or second day that all of our students arriving on campus about what this culture is like? We are having way better conversations than this. And a big project that V-Day worked on, which is the chapter that helped to put on the Vagina Monologues at School, was actually collecting an anthology of speak. And we had done like a handful of years of it, collecting Bowdoin students' stories about their experience with sex, with sexual assault, with their bodies, with, you know, sort of a whole range of things. And yeah, it became this really clear, like, we could do something better than what's out there. Let's do it. And so, yeah, we got the idea to kind of get some people that would be able to use their improv skills, their just awesome knowledge that they'd gained, and really have some clear and fun conversations about like, what do we want to say that like actually speaks to people and makes sense? So, yeah.
There's one memory that I have, and Kaylee, just cut me off if this is not on point, and Lindsay, you might jump in, that we had this idea, we all talked about it, Emily and Meadow got things rolling, and the idea was like, okay, well, we kind of got to do a proof of concept. We got to like show the powers that be that we could maybe do this. So Lindsay and I wrote it, and Emily edited it for us, and then it came time. What I remember is it was like some big gathering of all of like the residential life staff and deans and like this whole big thing. And it was like, all right, you guys should perform it. You and Lindsay should perform this thing. And so, you know, we tried to show them like it was going to be funny, and it was going to be a little bit raunchy, and it was definitely going to be, you know, sex positive and sex forward. And then Lindsay and I were like, wait, we have to stand up in front of the deans, like not in a performance setting, like without any rehearsal, with the script in our hands, and do this awkward thing. And so I just remember we went in and we did it, and we really gave it our all. And we walked out and we were like, well, that's the last time anybody will ever hear about that. Like, this is over. And thankfully that's not the case.
Yeah, it was a nightmare, but I think it went over well. But
and you rocked it, because here we are.
Yeah.
Sometimes nightmares work out, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that it worked out. And so after that initial sort of pilot test for the deans, I would love to hear a little bit about what it was like right before the very first show. What was going through your minds? Obviously, Shane, you were a cute little actor in this first experiment. Others of you were both in the show and waiting anxiously in the wings. What was that feeling like as this was getting ready to take off?
We, being in it, so we got to campus probably like a week early. We'd gotten the script over the summer, and I was once in a play in 7th grade where I was Queen Esther in the Purim play, and it did not go well. And so this was the first time I'd ever have to learn lines, and it was an adventure for sure. So we spent a few days there beforehand all together, and I remember being looking at colleges. Harvey is sniffing around. Looking at colleges in 2005, and it was the blue light system. So you could be able to see a blue light from another blue light, and that was their way of preventing violence and sexual assault on campus. And I remember standing like ready. We had the headset microphones. I always said I felt like like Britney Spears, but less slutty. And thinking that like we were about to do something that was going to change how people talked about consent. Like this was going to be something that was going to flip this on its head, and please, please, please don't forget my lines and don't fall off stage.
Yeah, I think we were just excited, and we had assembled such a great cast of people who had been really involved on campus in a lot of different ways. We wanted to show a range of faces and experiences and genders and everybody possible, which also was very different from other educators that we had all suffered through in our orientations. And yeah, like Shane said, we had a lot of fun together that week leading up. I mean, Jeremy and I had graduated already, so we just got back to campus with like no rules and made everybody hang out with us. There were 2 people on the cast who were having like a secret relationship too, which also was very exciting. So it was just the coolest group. And so I think that's what we knew, that these were people who the first years were gonna look up to and think that they weren't just losers who were making them sit for an hour and suffer through something that felt like medicine, but felt like, oh, these are great members of the community that I'm going to look up to and keep an eye out for campus, and just enjoy themselves while also getting a really important introduction to what the culture was going to be.
Amazing. Thank you all for sharing that. And I will also just say, as somebody who was an incoming first year in 2011, that impact definitely was had on me when I got to see it. It was a really amazing introduction to sort of the culture at Bowdoin, and also just coming from Ohio, which is not known for like stellar sex ed. I was definitely hearing about those topics in a different way for the very first time. So, and here I am now. So it must have worked. I would love to transition a little bit away from those first early days into the present. So if anyone would like to share ways that you might see lessons or skills or themes from Speak About It, or anything you gained from that experience and how it carries forward into your work today, whether personally or professionally.
Give me a microphone. I think in hearing Lindsay and Jeremy talk about it, one of the things that I really loved about Speak About It, and one of the things that I wanted to make sure we replicated when we took it on the road, was this sense of we are the cool older siblings, we are the cool upperclassmen, and we're telling you what the culture is like here. So instead of outsiders coming in and telling you what they think it's like, we were able to be, the 8 of us were able to be those people that would say, like, we're here to take you under our wing, and you're going to see us at parties doing what we said we were going to do in the active bystander scene. And that is so incredible. And so the one of the things that I've taken away from this is the ability to pull people in and to create empathy with folks and to make people feel like they're a part of the change. Nobody wants to be talked at. People want to be spoken with. We want to feel like the dialogue is going both ways. And I've said this for years afterward, it's that the show is fantastic, but no one's life is going to change because they heard something for an hour once. Our goal was to plant seeds with folks, and if they continue the conversation afterward, whether or not they loved it or hated it, if they keep talking about it, we've done our job. And so that's something that I continue to use in my work, especially in the education work that I do. That the goal is never to have a 1 hour conversation and then walk away. It's to plant seeds and keep people coming back and talking about it and thinking about it afterward.
Yeah, I would just
go ahead,
go for it, Jeremy. Go ahead.
The thing that strikes me about this is how we were part of a group, a really supportive group that found a problem and felt like it was a really big problem. And we felt like, well, it's up to us to do something about it. And I think that's something that I come back to a lot. And this is a concrete example where I was a part of that change, and that was so great. And I just hope, you know, that I can do that more. Like this makes me remember and realize what that feeling was like and how I need to take that forward, you know, every day. And I think that's something that Shane, you know, you have, and then, you know, everyone who's taken it over since then has.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I think that as Olivia like brilliantly stated, there's still so much work to be done. And I think one of the really cool things with this whole project and where we started was like where we were was not good. Like what was coming in was not good. And we were having the start of these conversations, and it was like, let's take this and move forward. And it wasn't perfect at all when it started, and it's grown and like evolved and continues to evolve and grow. I feel like I take that with me every single day when I walk into work. It's like, you know, I'm not starting from a place of perfection, but like having the conversations, asking the questions, just being open enough to sort of like go there with people feels super important. And both in like a clinical setting and talking with people openly and honestly about their bodies and their sex life and, you know, everything that feels important in that realm, but literally just like in life, I feel like is a skill that, you know, was definitely I definitely grew in a huge way with this project, and I think continues to grow just in life in general. There's always work to be done, and it's worth like taking that first step. So.
Thank you all so much. And I know tonight we've spent a lot of time talking about college-specific programming, which is a huge part of what Speak About It does. But I do want to highlight that in the years since, we've also expanded into high school-based programming, which I know was some of my favorite work that I did when I was working with Speak About It. And I just wanted to quickly share a little vignette because I think it dovetails nicely with that thought of the impact of seeing the show and then being able to talk about it and how that changes thinking. We were visiting a school in New Hampshire, and we were there right after the school had banned grinding at school dances, and it was like an uproar, like the students were furious. And the dominant narrative was, oh, like, you know, grinding's the best and everybody likes it, and this is terrible and an injustice and a violation of our civil rights. So these kids saw the show, and then I was facilitating a conversation with a small group, and instantly the grinding issue comes up, and they're starting to talk about applying consent to it. And some students are saying, you know, it's weird. Somebody comes up behind you in the dark. You don't really know who it is. You're waiting for your friend to give you the thumbs up or like, before, you know, because you don't want to make it awkward. And people are like, you know, it's awkward to initiate. You don't know if the person wants to dance with you or not. And so these thoughts are flying across the circle. And there was finally this sort of quiet moment. And I said, you know, it sounds like maybe grinding wasn't working out super well for a lot of people. And there was this one boy who was sitting directly across the circle from me who had been quiet the entire time. And in the silence just said, sometimes you just want to make eye contact. And like around the entire circle, there were just heads nodding. And that, I think about that moment a lot. It like still gives me goosebumps. Because yeah, like that's what this show has the power to start, is this conversation that brings people to a place of greater understanding and consideration for one another. So I just thank you guys so much for starting it all off for us, and feel so grateful to have been a part of it. We've got just like another minute here, so I would love to do a rapid fire, which this is tough, but what are our hopes for Speak About It in its next 10 years? Any thoughts? Where do you want to see this project go?
I'm going to use my rapid fire time to say it's amazing what you all have done over the last 10 years. And Shane, Aronde, Olivia, it's unbelievable what you've made this into and how many people's lives, you know, you've changed. So more of that, please. And I have full confidence that you will. It's unbelievable. So congrats.
I would just say more of the same and continue to grow and evolve in the amazing ways that you guys are. I feel like just the passion, the creativity, like, and the number of programs and the different ways that you guys are adapting and changing and figuring this out in a totally different way is huge and awesome and amazing. So thank you to all that have grown this to where it is in 10 more years. Like it's pretty incredible to think about where this will be 10 years down the road.
Any final thoughts?
I was gonna say that I was waiting for Lindsay to jump in. I was thinking today, like, when my baby is old enough to drink, I will still be 32 and handsome. But one of the reasons I stepped down in 2018 was because I can't answer that question about where I see it 10 years from now, and you all can. And I will do everything in my power to support you in the growth and the vision that you all have as leaders and taking this forward. And cheers to 1 million people.
Right. Thank you all so much for being here and for all of your unique contributions to this work. Thanks to everybody in our audience tonight. And if you'd like to help us take it into another 10 years, we would so appreciate your support if you're able. I know things are weird right now, and we totally understand and appreciate that. But every little bit does help.